man who is walking on the road. And as he's walking on the road, he's looking in front of him, a couple of feet in front of him, and he sees something, some object on the road. And he's watching it and looking at it. And it appears to be a snake in the road. This man has a fear of snakes. He doesn't like snakes. And so, as he's looking at the snake, he's starting to panic. And the closer he gets, the more he panics. He's just like really having this intense anxiety and fear. And he can't move any further down the road. He just stands there looking at the snake and just terrified that this thing is in the middle of the road. On the other side, he notices a man coming down the road on the other side of this snake. The man says to him, "What are you doing?" Because he looks kind of strange, just standing there in the middle of the road. He says, "I'm standing here because there's a snake. Can't you see that snake in the middle of the road?" And the other man says, "There's no snake in the middle of the road." He said, "Yeah, I saw it. It was moving fast." He goes, "Come over here. Come over here." He said, "I can't. There's a snake in the middle of the road. Can't you see the snake?" Because there's no snake in the middle of the road. It's a piece of rope. "No, it's a snake. I saw it moving. I swear, I saw it moving." It's a piece of rope. Come. And the man gets a little bit closer and a little bit closer. And as he gets closer to what he perceived was the snake, he comes to the awareness that it's a piece of rope. I'm sharing this with you because do you think that the man, after having recognized that the snake was a rope, if he came upon the situation again, say a week from then, would react the same way as he did when he did see this object in the road the first time? Do you think he would react the same way again? No. Right? So say it's 2 weeks from then and he sees an object in the road. Do you think that he's going to react the same way again? No. A year from now, is he going to remember what he learned from that lesson in the road? Sure he is. And so, quite often what happens, there's a revelation, an unveiling of things that happen to us. And during the process of these unveilings, these revelations, the newness of a situation, what occurs is a deep and profound wisdom once we allow it to really mull in our mind, really kind of sound down into our consciousness. So, of course, this situation, as you're standing in the road and seeing an object in the road and you're sensing the object as a snake and someone tells you it's a rope, I mean, this was a very emotional, profound lesson that you ponder after the fact. And you can imagine yourself, if it were you, put yourself in the shoes of the man who imagined the rope to be a snake and say, wow, that was really weird. Why did I think that the rope was a snake? Why did I get so scared over something that I wasn't 100% sure about? And why did I allow it to escalate to the point of terror? Why didn't I believe the other man on the other side initially? What was going on in my head? So the lesson isn't just something that we observe and then walk away from. It was a lesson that gave us an opportunity to consider why, how, and what were the trigger points, what were the mechanisms, what was the thinking. And that's why we wouldn't do it again in a week. That's why we wouldn't do it again in 2 weeks. That's why we wouldn't do it again in a year. Because it was a lesson that sounded down into our being. It was an awakening to ourself. I live in fear. I don't look at situations clearly. I don't trust other people's identification of a situation. I need to be in control. There's a lot of issues there, yeah? So when we have situations that occur in our life, when we have these kinds of trials, when we have these moments, these glimpses of unveiling, awakening, assessment of our own judgment, assessment of our character, assessment of our responses to our environment and others, our interactions with others, we should not be repeating them if we have really unveiled, if we have really awakened, if we have mulled over what has happened, why it's happened, how it's happened, what my part was in the happening. Because it changes the reality. It changed a snake into a rope. It changed a fear into a release. And so when we're doing that, when we're going through that process, we're evolving, we're growing, we're learning. If we're finding ourselves repeating behaviors, then we are not really learning from the lessons in our life. Because I'm sure that there are behaviors that we kind of repeat, and we can't really figure out why. It's like being in a trap, being in a circle, being in a hamster wheel. And we just don't get it. What in the world? But what's happening to us is our inability to move away emotionally from the situation and view it from an awakened state. To have learned from the situations that have occurred before in our lives so that we are continuing on our path of evolution. And so this is a very ancient story. How many of you have heard the story of the snake in the road before? Yeah? Sure. So are we applying the lesson from the snake in the road? Probably some of us are applying it in certain aspects of our life, right? And then in other aspects of our life, we struggle. We struggle. And so I want you to imagine yourself as the man on the path when you're struggling with those situations. And remember that the fear is self-caused. What happens tomorrow, what happens as you get closer, what happens as we deal with circumstances and situations, did you ever notice the fear of them is far greater than the dealing with them? Far greater. And so we are in control of ourselves and our minds. And once we are better in control of our minds, we are better in control of our emotional response to situations. And these kinds of effects grow. We grow. We become a person who has sight, an awakened one. Now, can you identify the awakened ones? Yeah. One of my teachers says they have a look in their eyes. A look in their eyes. They just seem to see things differently than the way that other people see things. The camera went off? Is that what you're telling me? Oh, okay. And so we want to make sure that this is the direction that we're going. Awakened, for those people that have that look in their eyes, that awakened awareness in their eyes, and their behavior identifies them. There's a calmness, there's a peacefulness, there's a wisdom in their words. People are drawn to them. They can't help it. They get goosebumps when they walk in the room. They can't wait to be around them. These are awakened individuals. They don't allow the tides of emotion or others' emotions to move them from place to place. They look down the road, they see an object in the road, they move towards the object and examine it. They make complicated decisions, calculated decisions, based on knowledge, based on fact, and based on circumstances, and not on just emotional response. And so this is what I wanted to share, was the powerfulness of this message, and especially in relationship to fear, because I feel that fear is a huge factor and a huge unsurmountable obstacle if we don't meet the challenge of it, identify it, embrace it, examine it in ourselves, because it kind of transforms, if we don't, into some really bad stuff. Anger, negativity, depression. But that basic feeling is fear that causes all these other things to come out. And so we want to make sure that we're moving in a direction that we kind of welcome that, examine that, look at that, and not be afraid of things that are in our path. And I leave that with you with this blessing. Namaste.